Do a lot of people defecate in your store, I asked. And she placed her hand over mine, saying, "How did you know?" Well, I told her, it's like this. In my boyfriend Hugh's last year of high school, his family moved back to the United States, and he got a job at a certain clothing store. Okay, it was the Gap. Hugh got a job at the Gap, and on more than one occasion, a customer entered the dressing room and defecated on the floor. The carpeted floor, to be exact. He mentioned this about 6 months ago, and I was like, we've been together for how long? And you're only telling me this now? Because this kind of story is right up my alley. What kind of a person would defecate in the Gap? It could be seen as a political statement, or an attempt to even some sort of a score, but that's probably giving credit where it's not due. There are bound to be exceptions, but from what I've gathered, the store itself is unimportant. In this woman's Target, people will crouch down in the middle of those circular clothing racks, do it right there with no door to hide them. In Pier 1, they'll just lean against a wall and lower their pants. The place is an outhouse, from what I've heard. So is Sears and Penny's, and this sort of thing has been going on for ages. As an author on book tour, I believe it's my duty to spread pertinent information from one part of the country to another. Night after night, I addressed the subject of chain store defecation, and 97% of the audience would shake their heads no. "You're putting me on," they'd say. "I don't believe it." The other 3% would nod yes, and these were the ones who worked in retail. One man that I spoke to stocks shelves at Kroger and swore that it happens all the time. In my case, it's mainly kids, he said, which is something I heard from quite a few people. Some poor 4-year-old will ask to go to the bathroom, and the mother will point toward a dark corner of the shoe department, or to a pyramid of canned pineapple. I guess they figure that because it's a child's, it doesn't really count, but I mean, come on, of course it counts. In Chicago, I met a librarian who decorated her children's department with an elaborate cardboard castle, something she'd crafted by hand and painted to look like stone. The castle went up, and come the second day, what did she find lying just inside the drawbridge? A turd, that's what. Though in this case it was left by a teenager who confessed after committing a similar crime in the elevator. It's sort of a different category, but in Las Vegas I spoke to a guy who worked for casino security and told me that people are so reluctant to leave a favorite slot machine that they'll often defecate in their pants. He orders them to leave, but instead of skulking out in shame, they'll put up a stink, or most of them will, saying they'll go back to their rooms when they're damn well ready. The nerve. I said to Hugh, you'd expect that kind of behavior at the craps table. But slot machines? As my tour advanced, the stories got meaner and more senseless. I learned of a woman who'd entered the restroom of a bookstore and defecated into the center of the toilet paper roll, which is not one of those things you'd get right the first time. It would require a certain amount of practice, but practice where? When she had finished, the woman placed the roll back on its holder, which is inconsiderate, but not as inconsiderate as a college student who's taken to defecating into his dormitory's washing machines, the customer who defecates into the urinal of the delicatessen I heard about, or into the standing ashtrays of a once grand hotel. I'm guessing that most of these cases have to do with leaving your mark on the world, an impulse we all share on one level or another. Some shoot high, creating lasting works of art, and others, well, who am I to judge? As a form of self-expression, defecating into a washing machine falls somewhere between scratching your initials into a bus window and setting fire to a trash can. Whatever notoriety there is to be gained is destined to be private, and hopefully short-lived. But that's what you get when you settle for number 2.
David Sedaris is the author most recently of the book Dress Your Family in Corduroy and Denim, and editor of the book Children Playing Before a Statue of Hercules.
moved in, it's been empty. Why I'm in this room, there is no point explaining.
So our program was produced today by Diane Cook and myself, with Alex Bloomberg, Jane Feltus, Sarah Koenig, Amy O'Leary, and Lisa Pollack. Our senior producers, Julie Snyder. Adrian Mathowitz runs our website. Production help from Sam Hogman, Chris Ladd, Seth Lind, and Bruce Wallace. Music help from Jessica Hopper. Our website, we can get our weekly podcast free, or listen to our old shows for free, www.thisamericanlife.org. This American Life is distributed by Public Radio International. This American Life is brought to you by Volkswagen. When you get into a Volkswagen, it gets into you. And Focus Features, presenting Atonement, the new romantic epic based on the novel by Ian McEwan, starring James McAvoy and Keira Knightley. Atonement, in theaters now. WBEZ management oversight for our show by Mr. Tori Malatia, who feels this way about working with us.
I could say that I get, like, a sense of emotional fulfillment, but not really.
I'm Ira Glass, back next week with more stories of This American Life.
PRI, Public Radio International.